I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Roll call. Dennis Bender.
Here.
Donna Davis.
Here.
Maria Alfaro here. Rick Raleigh.
Here.
Wilson Sell.
Here.
Okay. We would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and let's see, the flag is over here. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comments. We have not received requests for public comments.
Correct, we have not.
Okay. And at this point, I think we go into closed session. Do we need a move?
I make a motion, we go into closed session.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
If you'll just give us a moment.
Yes.
Yes. bring some water with.
Donna, you can call us back.
Okay.
Call the meeting back to order, please. Okay. I would like to ask, Wilson, would you lead us in the pledge
Sure.
today?
Let's all
Thank
stand.
you.
Raise the flag. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Now, are we gonna have reports from the union?
Kylie, do we have reports from the union? We do not have reports.
Okay. Not from either one, right?
Correct.
Okay. The clerk will read out any action taken in closed session. Oh, sorry. Do I have to repeat it?
Do we have one
Okay.
for her?
In closed session, the Board of Trustees took action in support of the following recommendation from the superintendent. B2, public employee appointment, resignation, retirement reduction. On a motion by Maria O'Hara, seconded by Mr. Raleigh, the Board of Trustees approved the following. As part of the ongoing effort to minimize the impact of the anticipated significant budget reduction revealed in the governor's May revise, Apple Valley Unified School District will be reassigning Earl Smith from his current position as coordinator of alternative education to the vacant position of principal High Desert Premier Academy, grade 12, column 2, on the certificated management salary schedule 205 base duty days, effective July 1. At this time, AVUSD will not be backfilling the coordinator position in preparation will be covered from within the current administrative team until the 2020-2021 long-term budget implications are determined. The vote is 5-0.
Thank you.
In closed session, the Board of Trustees took action in support of the following recommendation from the superintendent. B6, conference with labor negotiator. On a motion by Mr. Raleigh, seconded by
Does it need to be pressed?
B6, conference with labor negotiator. On a motion by Rick Raleigh, seconded by Dennis Bender. The Board of Trustees approved the following. The tentative agreement of Article 11 compensation dated April 27, 2020 with the California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 82A. Negotiated changes to Article 11 are related to health and welfare employee contribution calculations. The district contribution remains at $14,000 per benefit eligible employee that participates in the program. The vote was 5-0 in favor.
Thank you. And
I apologize, Madam Clerk. I'd like to ask IT if we need to repeat that so that it, since we're publicly streaming, I want to be sure that we have.
You gotta stay.
does she have to hold it down?
I understand. Do you want me to come hold it? I will.
It's a setting on the bottom of that mic,
Yep.
isn't it?
Let me know if you need any help.
Let's see, don't push him.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go, now you don't have to push.
You want me to
Settings
repeat it? Oh, nice.
back. That would be really.
In closed session, the Board of Trustees took action in support of the following recommendations from the superintendent. B2, public employee appointment, resignation, retirement, reduction. On a motion by Maria Okpara, seconded by Mr. Raleigh, the Board of Trustees approved the following. As part of the ongoing effort to minimize the impact of the anticipated significant budget reductions revealed in the Governor's May revise, Apple Valley Unified School District will be reassigning Earl Smith from his current position as Coordinator of Alternative Education to the vacant position of Principal High Desert Premier Academy, Range 12, Column 2, on the Certificated Management Salary Schedule, 205 base duty days effective July 1, 2020. At this time, AVUSD will not be backfilling the coordinator position in order to begin the process of reducing costs at the management level. Likewise, at this time, the vacant assistant principal position at Granite Hills High School and the vacant assistant principal position at Vanguard Preparatory will be covered from within the current administrative team until the 2020-2021 long-term budget implications are determined by a vote of 5-0. In closed session, the Board of Trustees took action in support of the following recommendation from the superintendent. B6, conference with labor negotiator. On a motion by Mr. Rick Raleigh, seconded by Mr. Dennis Bender, the Board of Trustees approved the following. The tentative agreement of Article 11 compensation dated April 27, 2020, with the California School Employees Association, CSEA, chapter number 828. Negotiated changes to Article 11I related to health and welfare employees' contribution calculations. The district contribution remains at $14,000 per benefit eligible employee that participates in the program. A vote of 5-0 in favor.
Thank you, Maria. Let's see, are we here? We're here? Okay, adoption of the agenda. The board may approve the agenda as is, or add and/or pull items from the consent agenda for discussion and/or action. We
Make a
need,
motion that we approve the agenda as is.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Okay.
Kylie, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments at this time.
Superintendent comments?
I would like to seek direction as to whether we should run our board meeting on June 11th in an earlier time frame than our normal board meeting schedule. If that is something I can have some direction on, I will bring that. We'll post it with an earlier start time. Is that,
I so move that you go ahead and do that. All the rest.
I just need some
Thumbs up.
consensus,
Second?
yeah.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
I see
All those
everybody,
in favor?
good.
Aye. Okay,
I will also bring the calendar to, forward so that we can talk about the 2 June meetings for next year as well for an earlier start time since it is summer break. Thank you. I have no other comment.
okay, discussion? No. Oh, board comments. Wilson, do you
I
have any
don't have
comments?
any.
No comments? Dennis?
No.
Rick?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Maria?
I would like to have my comment for, actually, I should go for it right now. As you guys are aware, there's been so much happening in the world that we live in, and it affects equity. It talks about equity. It talks about acceptance of the people that we service. I am hoping that Apple Valley will continue to do what it is doing currently. I was particularly impressed with the town of Apple Valley and how they conducted themselves with the rally yesterday. And I'm hoping that come next school year, we will see some changes in terms of how we approach the racial issues that seem to plague us on a regular basis. Perhaps look for real quality trainings so that our staff will be better prepared on how to handle the racial issues that occur in our communities. I would like to see the staff actually seriously get involved or engaged in what kind of discipline process they are choosing to go for. I have heard about the PBIS. I am not sure if that is the direction that works for all kids. But so I would like to see some of the schools begin to really have some serious conversations about how do you talk to kids who have never had an adult that really truly cares, and how do you show you care? Because it really doesn't matter that you have all of these degrees in front of you. If you cannot show a child you care, then you don't belong in the business. Education of children is extremely important to me, especially when my own children came through this process. Each time I see one child hurt, I hurt for them. I hurt for them, I hurt for their parents, I hurt for their community. And I'm hoping that this era that we are in right now will help us to see that everybody has rights. And we just have to allow them to exercise those rights with respect and dignity. We have seen so much pain in the society in this past 9 days. And I'm hoping that there will be changes. I really am, truly am hoping. And because I work for the school, I'm part of a school district trustee. My responsibility is where it affects children. Because if we can't treat children with dignity, they don't return the favor. They do not return, they cannot treat you back with dignity. And so we have to start by learning how we talk to kids, by learning how we, what do we do in terms of schools? Is school a pipeline to prison, or is it a pipeline to higher education? So we need to find better ways of dealing with kids. And that's why I'm particularly glad that Mr. Earl Smith is going to High Desert Premier. Because from that point, he can begin to effect change and begin to have conversations with the comprehensive schools that send the children over there so that they have a better understanding. This is not about Black children. This is about all children. So I just want to be clear, it's about all children. Poverty is a face that we all have seen. Race is a face we all have seen. I just want us to be, as a community, of realizing, yes, everybody has a different color, but they have one soul. And as soon as we can get to there, then we have a district that we can honestly be proud of. For this coming school year, I will be looking at how many minority students are sent to the office, come off for expulsion, suspended from school sites. I will be asking those hard questions, and I'm hoping that the schools will have answers for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You did a great job. I really don't think I could say anything better than what you just said. We're all thankful that you're here, and remind us constantly what we have to do to keep doing the very best we can for the students that we have. That's it. Okay. Okay, discussion information, District Learner, English Learner Advisory Committee, DLAC presentation. And
Excellent. Okay, so I'm just going to press play here on this video provided to me by the District English Language Advisory Committee team and Mariana Torres. And as I mentioned before, there's an English language version of what they're reading to you at your table there and for the public on the district website. So with no further ado, direct your attention to our parents.
Trustees. Yo represento a la escuela Bangor en ELAC y a nivel del distrito a DLAC le doy hago mención de mis otros compañeros que pertenecen al comité de DLAC. Es el señor Felipe Hernández, la señora Virginia Hernández, el señor Carlos Ibarra, la señora Sonia Reyes y Zaira Sánchez. Nosotros formamos el comité de DLAC representando a todos los padres de familia. Ante todo, quiero darle las gracias a la mesa directiva por el apoyo, especialmente a la superintendente Trinell Nelson por todo el apoyo que nos brinda y nos ha brindado durante todos los ciclos escolares. Desde antes de que ella fuera superintendente, siempre nos ha apoyado, le doy las gracias. Y por todo lo que apoya a nuestros alumnos, a nuestros hijos, para seguir la educación adelante. Yo quiero agradecerle y que esperemos que así continúe siempre escuchando nuestras peticiones, nuestras necesidades y pues que sean cubiertas. En el porcentaje de los niños aprendices de inglés estamos altos. Los maestros con su trabajo, que son los apoyos de ESL, se puede decir, están yo estoy muy agradecida con ellos por el trabajo que hacen, en particular con mi hija, porque mi hija es aprendiz de inglés y ella está avanzando. Y el porcentaje que tenemos ahorita es un 9.2, pero es más el porcentaje y más la cantidad de alumnos que están que están reclasificados. Pues muchísimas gracias nuevamente por todo el apoyo que nos brindan. Estamos en contacto para saber qué más podemos hacer o cómo podemos trabajar con ustedes para que nos sigan apoyando. Muchas gracias.
My name is Marisa Aragon, and I have children in a Vanguard preparatory. It is an honor for me to be part of this presentation. Below, I will share with you about the reclassification work in progress. This is defined when a student reaches English fluency on the English language proficiency assessments for California, known for its initials ELAC, having an overall score of 4. We also have reclassification criteria based on some requirements in which the students' skills are graded. Teacher evaluation and parent consultation opinion are important in this step. As you can see in the following slide, the number of reclassified students was 162. It increased to 11.6%, a little more than the previous year. Then we have some recommendations that we would like to consider as you have previously done, such as parent education, level English courses, offer, construction class, computer literacy class, Job Corps parent field trip. That is one important for us. So many parents could enjoy and learn about all this. College readiness awareness workshops, cash for college, and some others. Yo estoy muy agradecida y les felicito también porque a pesar de la situación que se ha estado viviendo estos últimos meses, todos ahí han trabajado muy duro para llevar a cabo lo que se está haciendo hasta este momento y para mantenernos informados de las diferentes opciones en las que ustedes están trabajando para que nuestros hijos pues no pierdan esa educación, pues que ellos se mantengan avanzando. Y eso para nosotros, con mi esposo lo hemos comentado, es una gran satisfacción y es una alegría ver cómo todos ustedes están haciendo lo posible y de poder pues dar a nuestros hijos la mejor educación que ellos puedan recibir y gracias por eso también, porque están abriendo puertas por todos lados, no se han detenido y bueno, ahí les estamos nosotros para apoyarlos y echarles porras.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Felipe Antonio Hernández. Como representante de DILAC, pues tengo a 3 niños, a 2 hijos míos, mi sobrina, Natalia Hernández, que está en el grado 10 en Granite Hills, a Philip Hernández, que está en el grado 9 en Granite, y a Andrea Sofía en el grado 7 en Sittingbourne. Logro como el poder recomendarles incluso a ustedes, recomendarles a todo el proceso, que se nos tome en cuenta, ¿verdad? Para algunos recursos para las escuelas, que al final de cuentas uno sabe de que esos recursos son directamente para nuestros hijos, ¿no? ¿Qué más hablar también del ELCAP, donde también somos escuchados, ¿verdad? Dentro de todo este proceso. Ahora, dentro de los talleres donde nosotros ya nos reunimos como padres de familia, es importante o quisiera resaltar el hecho de cómo nos toman en cuenta en cuanto a la participación directa, la asistencia misma de otros padres de familia que podrían también participar dentro de este proceso. Sabemos que somos muy pocos, pero a pesar de que somos pocos, queremos hacer resaltar el hecho de que se nos tome en cuenta, ¿verdad? Porque somos padres de familia, y si se nos toma en cuenta a nosotros, es porque también se está tomando en cuenta a nuestros hijos, ¿no? El hecho de también ofrecernos un espacio donde el padre de familia también puede aprender, donde el padre de familia también puede crecer, incluso puede crecer a la par de su hijo, ¿no? Hablamos un poco de las reclasificaciones, ¿verdad? El sello bilingüe para mí es muy importante. Animo a mis hijos no solamente a manejar este nuevo idioma que es el inglés, ellos también lo hacen conmigo para el inglés, ¿verdad? Y los animo para incluso un tercer idioma, ¿no es cierto? Pero gracias a ustedes, a ese espacio, que podemos tener esa oportunidad nosotros como padres de familia, ¿no? Ese espacio de los padres de familia también nos permite discutir y aportar acerca de las actualizaciones del distrito en general, ¿no? El cómo el distrito va caminando y cómo vamos nosotros también caminando en ese proceso. Sabemos que hay cambios, sobre todo ahora, ¿verdad? El nuevo año escolar que está cerca y sabemos de que eso implica continuar, avanzar y no quedarnos estancados ni preocuparnos tampoco, sino de que todo por nuestros hijos y seguir avanzando. Dentro de nuestras metas para el próximo año, incluso conocer un poco más del sistema universitario en este país, ¿verdad? Y cómo podemos ayudarle a integrar a ese joven que ahora está por salir de la high school y ahora se enfrenta casi solo, ¿verdad? A ese sistema universitario. ¿Y qué hacer? ¿Qué es eso? ¿Cómo se hace? ¿Desde qué año es, verdad? Muchas veces nos topamos con un montón de papeles, de flyers, vea el internet, pero nosotros queremos acercarlo mucho más, ¿verdad? O por lo menos nosotros tenerlo de primera mano. Así que esos son una de nuestras metas para el próximo año. Hoy, con esto de los cambios que se están dando, ¿verdad? Las nuevas evaluaciones, los nuevos procesos que se quieren implementar, también queremos ser parte. Ahora, quiero de forma muy personal agradecerles, ¿verdad? Primero, el que se me haya tomado en cuenta, que nos tomen en cuenta como padres de familia, ¿verdad? Y decirles de que no se sientan solos, ¿verdad? Nadie estaba preparado para todo este proceso. Como padres de familia, muchas veces quizás queremos señalarlos a ustedes, pero nosotros, ¿verdad? También hay algunos padres de familia que queremos decirles, confiamos en que ustedes llevarán este proceso de la mejor manera. Sé que están pensando el próximo año algunos escenarios. Como padre de familia sí estoy un poco temeroso sobre un sistema tal vez híbrido, un sistema completamente presencial, ¿verdad? Me gustaría un proceso más, continuar de forma virtual, quizás un segundo semestre, continuarlo de forma híbrida, pero son nada más opiniones personales y sé que ustedes tomarán la mejor decisión para nuestros hijos de cara al próximo año escolar. Gracias por todo el esfuerzo extra que están haciendo por nuestros hijos. Por favor, díganle a los maestros, a todo el personal, ¿verdad? Y a todas esas maestras que están a cargo de nosotros, muchas gracias por todo el trabajo que están haciendo, no solamente con nuestros hijos, sino con nosotros los padres de familia. Muchas gracias y los animo a que continúen trabajando en pro de nuestros hijos y que ahí estamos para todo lo que necesiten y que podamos nosotros ayudarles. Dios los bendiga en este proceso. Muchas gracias.
Todos ustedes, mi nombre es Marilena Ortiz.
And then just to follow up, the last handout you have is a quick overview of the English language development department's process through the year. So if you find a handout that says Annual English Learner Program Evaluation, this program evaluation is provided to you briefly here by Mariana Torres. She'll talk you through these slides. One more video. Ready?
Today and share with you some of the amazing successes that our English learners have been making in this district. As part of this presentation, we are going to discuss the progress of English learners towards English proficiency, the number of English learners who have been redesignated as fluent English proficient, the number and percentages of English learners who are at risk of becoming long-term English learners, the achievement in other areas, the progress towards making our LCAP goals, and also we would like to have an opportunity to talk about what our next goals are. Currently, we have 1,350 English learners within our system. One of the measures that we use to indicate their progress is the LPAC assessment, which is given to our English learners once a year. The LP, or English Learner Progress Indicator, which is located in our dashboard, gives us a glimpse on how they're making progress from year to year. 46.8% of our students are making progress towards English language proficiency as indicated by this year's results. As we look a little bit closer at our LP results, we see that 41.9% of our English learners made a whole level's worth of growth, while 4.8% of our students were already achieving the highest level and have maintained that level of a 4. 31.5% of those students maintained the level that they currently had, while 21.6% of our students decrease an LP level. Another way that we look at progress of English learners is to look at our dashboard. A couple of areas that I would like to highlight today is our graduation rate here at Apple Valley Unified School District for our English learners. While California's EL graduation rate stands at 68.7%, we are working towards having every single one of our English learners graduate and be successful. Right now, we are at 83.3%, 3 points up from last year. And we look forward to seeing how we have done this year, as we believe we have increased that number as well. Also, in our college and career measure, We are standing at 42%. California EL college and career rate right now stands at 16.8%. That truly shows you the dedication that our students put into their future. Another measure that we look at for our English learners and their progress is the number and percentage of English learners redesignated or reclassified as fluent English proficient. This year, we have gained some numbers, and we are proud to say that 11.6% of our students reclassified or redesignated as fluent English proficient. 162 students total have made that mark and have exited our program. Another measure that we look at in this district is the number and percentage of English learners who are at risk of becoming LTELs, or long-term English learners. These are students who have been in the program for more than 5 years and have not redesignated. Currently, we have 438 students that are considered LTELs, 213 who are at risk of becoming long-term English learners. These students have specialized supports in designated and integrated ELD daily to meet their needs and are making progress steadily even though they have not met redesignation. We also have 366 students who have been enrolled for less than 3 years in the program and are making progress. 265 have been with us for more than 4 years and are not at risk of becoming LTELs as they have been making steady progress. Another way to look at achievement of English learners is to look at the CASP or the Smarter Balance Assessment. In English Language Arts, as we see a comparison of English learners with redesignated students and English-only students, we see that current English learners are 86 points below standard. Reclassified English learners are 22.2 points above standard, which is a great gain as they are making not only progress, but they're finding success after exiting the program. The English-only counterparts right now stand at 21.4 points below, almost a 40-point difference under redesignated students. If we were to look at the math, we see that current English learners are 120 points below standards, while reclassified English learners in math are at 23.9 points below, which is still about 40 points higher than the English-only counterparts who are 63.7 points below. Last but definitely not least, I would like to share with you the progress towards LCAP EL goals that we have been making and what are our next steps. We would like to see that all of our English learners will move towards proficiency in English, with 85% maintaining or moving one level towards reclassification per year. To do this, we are training our staff to fully implement designated and integrated ELD portions of the ELA ELD program and standards on a daily basis. We are piloting an AVID Excel program which provides designated supports to our English learners and our LTELs so that they can be ready for the academic demand and rigor that's provided within their day. QTEL, Quality Teaching for English Learners, has been working with our district to support ELLs and their content area instruction and provide access as they progress towards language fluency. We have specialized ELD instruction for LTELs and English learners in grades 7 through 12. And in our self-contained classes, our English learners get designated ELD on a daily basis. We are training to understand and support our ELLs and their families better every day. And this summer, as we embark in another adventure, we will tackle distance learning supports and virtual learning environments, focusing on the special needs of English learners. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to work and serve in this district and for all of the hard work that every single one of you has done to support our program, our English learners and their needs. I am very proud to not only be an employee in Apple Valley Unified, but also a parent and a member of this community. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Wonderful to be able to share such great data and that information. It's not every district that gets to show college and career readiness and graduation data for English learners that's so far above the state average. It's a real testament to the work in the LCAP and the dedicated and focused support that those English learner counselors provide at the high school level. It's really paying off. So thank you.
I have a question on this one. Can I ask at this time?
Yes.
The question had to do with the number and percentage of English learners at the risk of becoming long-term English learners. Have you run any tests or any assessments to figure out what is a common thread with these students that is making them stay at that straight level instead of making any progress?
This is the age-old question for the LTELs and why they pause where they pause. Mariana and I talked about that today, in fact, because the question becomes this. Once they've reached a point where it may not be necessarily a language issue, we know a couple of things, and you've probably heard this before. One, it often becomes an academic language issue.
Mhm.
So it is the language about and surrounding schooling. Second, the part of this that we have to really be careful of is making sure that, because you saw the rates when the redesignated students get into, for example, their smarter balance scores
Correct.
are 40 points higher than the regular student cohort. So the reclassification criteria are rigorous. And so to move out is difficult. So these long-term English learners, one, we're asking them to clear a high bar. Two, it's important to remember that at some point we have to transition them into the academic language, which is why we selected Avid Excel. Avid Excel for those students isn't just Avid. This is about helping them, almost all LTEL students in these sections, have access to the very areas where they're struggling. And often it has to do with the more difficult language arts skills of summary, rhetorical analysis that are required on the LPAC to some degree. In fact, the LPAC requires them to read and summarize science articles. It's quite rigorous. So I think that is the main area. We are not finding a common thread from the point of view of there's no disability that reveals, other than we do find that for some students, they become comfortable in the ELD environment. And so we have to encourage them to reach out beyond that. And the teachers are wonderful about that. So that's why I think you'll see those numbers continue to rise of our reclassification numbers, and those LTEL numbers hopefully continuing to fall.
So when you have your AVID program, do you have really highly skilled instructors for those AVID programs that is aware of the fact that there are English learners in their AVID class? Because one of the things that you might find is an AVID teacher may be so good at being an AVID teacher, and they fail to realize that there's somebody who's coming in from a second language and is trying to learn the academic language plus their second language, that they're also going to continue to practice at home.
Yeah.
Because, when you have a second language, it just doesn't turn off because you are at school. You're going to have the second language, and you tend to communicate mainly with people who speak that second language or that first language with you. And so it's really hard for those students to make those transitions. So my question is, if you have your AVID tutors or your AVID teachers who are very comfortable in realizing that these students come with special, their English language learner deficiency that needs to be addressed in order to move them forward.
We do. In fact, those teachers have special training to be part of that pilot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, boy, that was interesting. Proposed budget presentation.
Thank you. You'll see on the screen, and you also have a copy at your seat of the presentation I'm about to deliver. So I have the Pleasure to deliver a little summary for next year's proposed budget. So this is the 2021 fiscal year. And as always, we have several sources we utilize as we put our budget together moving forward. Number one, our current year estimated actuals as of May 2020. Again, that's the current school year we're in and how we estimate we're going to finish the year. We're still not done, so we still have some things that can change those estimated actuals, but that at this point creates the starting point for our budget. We also rely on Governor Newsom and his January budget proposal along with his May revision. We utilize the FICMAT LCFF calculator that determines the lion's share of our state revenue based on our ADA and our unduplicated pupil percentage. We utilize the school services dartboard and the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools common message, which comes out of the Business Advisory Services Office down at the county schools. So here we are. This is quite an extensive chart of lots of numbers, but I'm going to highlight a few. If you notice, our budget is broken into two main components: unrestricted revenue and expenses and restricted revenue and expenses. I know, of course, we combine those for our overall budget, and I would like to point out on the combined column, you'll notice the excess deficiency about 6 lines down is a negative $9.7 million. So as of May 2020, we are estimating we are finishing this year spending $9.7 million more than we took in revenue in the current fiscal year. So that is a significant deficit spending and will be our third consecutive year of deficit spending down our ending fund balance, which we're estimating. You'll see that's the green number 2 lines down. Our combined ending fund balance estimate is approximately $12.6 million as of the end of this month. Again, this will change based on actual activity over the next few weeks as we close the books in August and September, when I will present to you the unaudited actuals. Just to break down a little bit of the expenditure detail, this is our major object categories, 1,000 through 7,000. You'll see certificated, classified employee benefits, books and supplies, services and operating expenditures, capital outlay, and other outgo. And that's just a little breakdown how we spend the money that comes to us to fund our system to educate the students of Apple Valley. A couple things I'd like to point out. Down at the bottom, we do make a couple transfers out in the current year, one of them to support our Nutrition Services Fund and the unpaid meal debt that the Nutrition Services Fund acquires throughout the year. Federal law prohibits the Nutrition Services Fund from covering that bad debt, so our unrestricted general fund, we make that transfer over to cover that. And then we also had a $707,000 transfer out, which is our redevelopment agency pass-through funds that come to us, which are restricted for facilities use only. So those were transferred into Fund 40 to support facilities projects. So as we look at, that was kind of our estimate for this year and how we're finishing up. So now I'm going to move into next year and our projected budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. So to talk a little bit about the revenue to begin with, we are budgeting for about 12,605 average daily attendance. That's our projected P2. That is higher than this year's. So we are budgeting still an increase in ADA and an increase in enrollment. In terms of the LCFF COLA, the statutory COLA calculated for next year was 2.31%. However, in Governor Newsom's May revision, he deficited that statutory COLA by 10%, netting approximately a 7.92% reduction in our LCFF funding that we're faced with. So you'll see right below that the specific impact on our local control funding. In January, we were anticipating in next budget year just under $139 million of LCFF revenue. Now, that is base grant revenue, grade span adjustment revenue, supplemental, concentration grant revenue, and transportation funding. In the May revision with Governor Newsom's proposed reductions, we are budgeting currently about 125.2. So you'll see that's over a $13.5 million reduction in our LCF revenue from January to May, based on the situation that this nation and this world is in right now with the current pandemic and the economic turmoil it has caused throughout the world, the nation, and the state of California. Less revenue into the state means less money to school districts. One thing the federal government has done is the CARES Act, and we are budgeting some different federal sources in next year that will total approximately $13.5 million in one-time federal support for Apple Valley Unified School District. Now, there is still some uncertainty behind these specific funds, when they're going to come, when they have to be expended by, and what kind of requirements for their spending will actually be attached. So there are some questions there remaining that we'll continue to learn over the next few weeks and few months. Additional revenues, as part of our LCFF, we do have a K-3 grade span adjustment. We are currently assuming receipt of all that grade span adjustment revenue, which means our K-3 classrooms will continue to be required to be staffed at a maximum class load of 24:1. Our routine restricted maintenance account, which is a required contribution, we are currently budgeting, contributing 3% of our budgeted expenditures to the routine restricted maintenance. And our transportation add-on, which is part of our LCFF, was reduced by 10% according to the governor's May revision. So we are reflecting that within our LCFF funding. On the expenditure side of the budget for next year, we are assuming and budgeting for step and column for all units. We have not budgeted for any compensation increases in any of our employee groups. We are budgeting the STRS and PERS contribution rates as proposed in the governor's May revision. And we are proposing some and have budgeted for some position economies. Now, these are some positions that were currently unfilled that we're planning to remain unfilled next year. So we have removed those from the budget. However, there are many current unfilled positions that will continue to roll over into next year and will be filled as needed depending on how our students show up and the instructional needs we have. So we have removed only some of the unfilled certificated and classified positions from our budget next year. One expense we did remove is related to our transportation. We have purchased 2 or 3 buses during the last several fiscal years to maintain our fleet. We did remove that purchase and are not planning on purchasing any additional buses next year. Our LCAP expenditures are all budgeted as ongoing, and of course, we will make adjustments to those expenditures as the LCAP goes through its approval process based on the governor's proposed revised timelines. And I do believe that will be adopted sometime December, if that's correct. Thank you. Maintenance and operations, we had one of the things we did have in our LCAP was to support the clean and well-maintained facilities goal that the state of California has, a transfer of approximately $675,000 into our deferred maintenance fund. We did remove that. We do have our 3% routine restricted maintenance account I mentioned earlier, and that will continue to support maintaining clean and well-maintained schools. So here's a quick look at the finances that we're projecting for next year. You'll see our unrestricted revenues and restricted revenues column, and then the combined column reflecting all those adjustments and assumptions that I just spoke of in the last several slides. You will see in the combined column, we are still projecting approximately a deficit of $1.9 million. Now, the caution I will say here is we are budgeting $13.5 million of restricted federal revenue, or some unrestricted, some restricted federal revenue that still has some questions attached to that. So if not all of that federal revenue comes in, then that deficit grows. If we add additional expenditures, either one-time or ongoing in this budget year, then that deficit grows. So that's just something to be aware of as we move forward through this current budget cycle. So moving to year 2, because as you recall, we have to do a 3-year budget and show fiscal solvency at the end of that 3rd year. So that actually takes us all the way to June of 23. But this is year 2, 21-22. So we are continuing to budget a projected increase in our ADA. We are also budgeting the statutory COLA as recommended by the Department of Finance and the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools Business Advisory Office. That is a question mark, and we're not sure if that's going to come. So if that revenue does not materialize, of course, we will need to make economies as appropriate. That COLA does facilitate approximately a $3.8 million increase in revenue in that particular budget year. Again, we're assuming receipt of the K-3 grade span adjustment revenue, which means we will have to maintain 24:1 in all our grades K through 3. And we do have to account for the elimination of that federal revenue. It comes one time, so it comes to us, what we're currently planning, it will come to us in the 2021 budget year, so it will not be present in the 21-22 budget year. So you see, we have to remove $13.5 million of revenue. Now, with the increased LCFF and that adjustment to federal revenue, that does net to a $9.7 million reduction in revenue from year one to year two in this 3-year budget cycle. On the expenditure side, you'll see we are budgeting for step and column for all units. We are not budgeting for any compensation increases. Again, we're budgeting for the STRS and PERS contribution rates as proposed in the governor's May revision. And again, the LCAP expenditures with appropriate adjustments once the LCAP is approved. So we do have some planned expenditure reductions in the second year of this budget to offset that $9.7 million reduction in revenue. We line itemed, without specifics at this point, $9.5 million of reductions in this budget. Now, without having specifics, that brings us to the bottom bullet on this particular slide. In talking with business advisory services down at the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools office, if we're going to be making significant cuts in this particular budget year, we have to have a board-approved budget reduction plan submitted with our budget year second interim. So that means when we submit our second interim budget to the county in March of 2021, we will need to have a board-approved plan with specific budget reductions in order to remain fiscally solvent. That will take work in this entire fall, well, summer and fall as we head into next budget year. So here's my budget projection, or our budget projection, with those assumptions I spoke of on the last couple pages, most notably the reduction in revenue and the corresponding reduction in expenditures. You'll see with those two items, and of course budgeting for step and column increase costs and STRS and PERS contributions, we're still projecting a $3.6 million deficit, spending more than we're getting. So that takes our ending fund balance all the way down, our combined ending fund balance down to approximately $7.1 million in this particular scenario, utilizing those assumptions. The third year in the cycle, again, 22-23, takes us out to June 30th of 23, just a few weeks more than 3 years from today. We're again budgeting for a continued increase in ADA, and we're budgeting the COLA. If either of those do not materialize, that means less revenue, which means we will need to make more expenditure reductions or economies in operating costs. And again, we're assuming receipt of our K-3 grade span adjustment revenue, which of course means we have to maintain the staffing level in our K-3 classes. Salaries, again, step and column for all units, no budgeted compensation increases, and STRS and PERS contribution rate increases this year because Governor Newsom proposed only a 2-year accelerated buy down of those rates. So the STRS and PERS rates do take quite a jump from the 21-22 to the 22-23, and our LCAP expenditures. So here's the financials that go along with those particular assumptions in our 22-23, the third year of this 3-year budget cycle. And you'll see we're currently projecting approximately a $1.3 million combined deficit, taking our combined ending fund balance down to just under $5.8 million. Now, I would like to bring that to the board's attention. That is over the 3% minimum as required by law, which that year is about $4.7 million. So we have about we have a small cushion. However, that number is below the 5% established by the board. So at some point, we will need to make some additional reductions as we move through to ensure that we meet our 5% board policy unrestricted budget reserve. Some highlights and concerns for the future in this particular budget cycle. I put COVID-19 first. That's the first thing on everybody's mind. What's going to happen? How are we going to come back in the fall? What are the economic and political, what's the economic and political fallout we have to deal with in terms of the particular state of California in particular? The economic recovery that hopefully will come in what they call a V fashion rather than a U or an L. The faster recovery, the better in terms of funding for the state and funding for schools. Our enrollment trend is something we will definitely have to monitor because we are through this 3-year cycle projecting increases in enrollment in ADA every year. So that is also something very important to watch. The LCFF funding, we are assuming the COLA. If those COLAs are not funded, that is a significant reduction to the revenue that we are currently assuming in this 3-year cycle. And of course, we're always concerned about the legislature manipulating Prop 98. The STRS and PERS costs, the question is, will the rate buy downs continue? We don't know. Right now, Governor Newsom did propose the buy downs for year 1 and year 2 of this cycle, but not year 3. That may change over time, and we will adjust as necessary with Governor Newsom proposes changes or extending those buy downs. So the state adopted budget. Right now, we have the governor's May revision, and that's what our budget is built on. And that's the guidance we got from school services, FICMAT, and county business advisory services. However, the legislature did yesterday, the Senate and Assembly largely rejected the governor's proposed cuts in their negotiated budget agreement. And as they have not approved that budget agreement yet, they do have until June 15th for the legislature to approve a budget and send it to the governor for his signature. I would venture that they are going to approve the budget as they negotiated and send that to the governor. Now, the governor has a couple weeks. He has until July 1st or June 30th to sign the budget, and he does have power for line item vetoes, and he can also send it back to the legislature and say, try again, or do this again, or let's try this. So there is still room for negotiation on that budget. What the Senate and Assembly negotiated together does not necessarily mean that's what we're going to get. So we'll be watching that over the next month or so to see what happens up in Sacramento. And the biggest what if I mentioned before is the current recession. Unfortunately, we had a record economic recovery stopped dead in its tracks by COVID-19, unfortunately. And that does impact California and the nation, and unfortunately the school district in terms of our revenue. And that federal funding, how is that $13.5 million going to flow to Apple Valley Unified? How are we going to be able to use it? And how will that ensure our continued operations? So at this time, I'd be happy to entertain any questions from the board.
13.5 million is not guaranteed.
Not at this point, Mr. So. It is not guaranteed. We are confident it will come, but we're confident it will come with some strings and some requirements from the federal government.
I do have several questions, obviously. My first question had to do with the 2020-2021 budget assumptions. We're making the assumption that we'll have an enrollment that will match where we are. Have you looked at other districts to see what their story is in terms of parents who are already opting not to return their children to school, and how that will look for our district when the time comes?
No, we do not specifically look at other districts. We look at the enrollment trend in our district and what we've experienced over the past several years. Now, next fall could bring something different, but if we have students that enroll in school and either receive instruction on campus or in a distance learning, they're still enrolled and we still get ADA for them. So as long as we maintain or continue to increase that enrollment and ADA projection that we're using can come true. We will monitor that as the kids show up in the fall, what our enrollment looks like. We'll have a period 1 attendance reporting that we'll monitor, and we'll always adjust those assumptions as appropriate based on what happens in the fall.
Okay. So based on that, have educational services, ed services, have you guys had any conversations regarding what models you are looking at in terms of how we're going to start school come next year?
We have, what we've done essentially is begin to gather information. So we did an extensive parent survey, which had really excellent, over 3,000 parents thus far have responded, given us nearly half of our families have given us information indicating the answers to several questions. One of them being, if we open in the fall in a regular model or a hybrid model, do you intend to return your child to school? And the numbers have held really pretty steady at about 25% saying no, that they would prefer to continue in a virtual environment. So we are preparing to adjust our system such that we can offer to those families a rigorous and appropriate virtual learning environment, so that just as Mr. Schulenberg said, we don't lose them. We want to continue to offer them. And to be honest with you, I believe we can do a better job than anyone at this.
So when you have that, you already have some of that information that has come to you. Do you have you had the time to share that information with the teachers who will be the people who pass this information or teach the kids
Good question.
when they go home?
Right.
So you have to have that conversation with the teachers. Who wants to teach online? Who has a health issue that needs to, we need to consider in order to have those things in place? And how does that look? So I think we have June now, July is the new fiscal year. And then we're going to go from there to August.
And ready to go.
And
Yeah.
teachers need to start this conversation right away. They need to start talking about it, having their little groups together, even if it means contacting the different schools so that they can pull their teacher leaders so that they can be part of this conversation. And they can have the opportunity to be part of the process.
I understand.
Okay, so I'm hoping that that's one of the things you're going to think about. Mr. Schulenberg, back to you. Can I finish with her? Because
Absolutely.
with him, I don't want to forget my trend. We just had the online, all virtual school from March 13th to June. How much was the savings? How much was the expenditure during this time that they went away? What I'm trying to wrap in my head is if all the kids came to school and they all had lunch or they were all in seat, this is what you assume will be your cost to educate those kids in seat. Now they went home. How much did it cost you for them to stay home? Keeping in mind that you provided them with technology, and the district gave them, some of them, hotspots. How much did that cost you as a district? The actual amount. How much did that cost you as a district as opposed to how it would have cost you if they were in seat? Because that's important for me to wrap my head around to see, did we spend more money than we should have spent, or did we spend less money than we should have spent?
Well, it's a very good question. At this point, I don't have any specific numbers that I could provide to you as we're closing the books.
Okay.
However, we get to the end of the year and we start analyzing our utility bills and different purchases that we've made regarding to distance learning. We can begin to make that comparison. Just to remind the group, though, one thing that we did do during the entire closure was continue to pay all of our employees.
Correct.
As the governor's executive order.
Mhm.
And as our entire budget, our employees do make up about 85% of our expenses on the unrestricted side of our budget are combined approximately 77% of our expenses. So the vast majority of our budget does go to pay the people.
Okay.
But having some specific numbers is something I'll be able to have more specific information in the fall.
Okay. Then my next question is, if the ending fund balance is 7.1 million that you have now, as when we come to the end of June, that will be what you will have, or negative whatever. What does that mean in terms of our reserve? Do we still have the 3% reserve?
Well, if I could point you up to the screen there, in our current year, we're actually projecting, I'm sorry, let me get to the right slide. We're projecting an ending fund balance at the end of this month, just about $12.6 million in our current budget year.
So how much is that for the percentile? Is
The-
that the 5%? Is that the 3%? Or is
Well,
that the?
That exceeds both the 3 and the 5. That's our
Okay.
combined ending fund balance. The
Okay.
3% required is part of our unrestricted, and that's based on our entire expenditures. So we're right about 172 million in expenditures in the current. So 3% of that would be required on the unrestricted, or 5% of that according to board policy. And the 12.5 does exceed both of those numbers. And as we work through that budget cycle, even in year 3, when our combined ending fund balance dropped to, I believe it was about $5.7 million, that exceeds the 3% required by law,
now
but does
less
not
than 5.
exceed the 5% required per board policy.
All right. Okay.
If I may make a comment, when we get, that's my concern, when we get to that near 3%, We have experienced that in the 2008 cut. Very dangerous, okay? That's when at that point, the board was staffed to raise our own required minimum because of that concern. I just want to point it out.
Well, I'm assuming that the board, before I joined the board, had made a decision that we have to be no less than 5% at a
5%.
minimum,
5%.
right? 5%, no less than that. And the state said 3%. The board said 5%. And, you know, they've been floating a bunch of percentiles along the way. But if we are going and the state's not giving us all of the funds that we need, then we need to really seriously consider going back to what the state said in terms of 3%. And then we'll just operate based on our 3% until the state can come up with a different kind of funding model. Because right now we are looking at a funding model based on status quo. We're doing things that the state wants us to do without the funding. And they're asking us to do the same thing after the COVID-19 with the same funding model without the funds. So at some point, somebody is going to say, well, we can't operate this way. We don't have the funds to do what you're asking us to do. So let us come back to the conversation table and have a different kind of conversation to say to whoever needs to know, we need to apply a little break here. Let us do what we can do as a district. Let's make a determination based on what's best for our kids, not what the state has thrown at us. Because when the state sends you $139 million, and then they give you boundaries that is $190 million worth of boundaries, they're practically giving you $139 million and tied your hands. They've given you they said, here's money, and everybody knows you have that kind of money, but they tied your hands. They've given you boundaries. You can't do this with this money, but you can do this with this money. But this money that they want you to do it with, you don't have the students that you can use for that money. So the money just plain sits. So at some point, we need to say to the state, this is what we have. We need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So
I have a question. Has any of our older teachers expressed apprehension about coming back and working in a coronavirus environment?
We've had a variety of people that have expressed concern because of compromised immune systems, not just older teachers, but people that have other issues. But the same concern comes true of one of the models that has been thrown out by the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, which has to do with a hybrid model. Several of our teachers are concerned about how they operate in that setting when they have their own children who would be attending in a part day or 2 or 3 days a week, and they would still need childcare. And so that's another consideration. And I can talk at the June 11th board meeting if you'd like during public session and at superintendent comment about what our plan is looking like and why it's looking like it is very specifically.
If I may jump back on this reserve issue, okay? A few years back, if you remember I was a regional director at CSBA, and CTA is fighting all districts throughout the state in terms of, well, we're going to spend down the reserve, we got too much reserve. But look at what happened today, okay? So reserve is if I may jump for the rest of the board, the new board member, it is important for us to have a safe factor, because when you drop below 3%, it's nothing to work with. Because over the last 27 years, I observed the district. We do borrow. In my very first year on the board, we do borrow money, from the Fuller County. That's even though we charge paying 3%, because when we borrow money, because we're not talking about the way we spend money and then we wait for state to give our money back to us. We got to have our own small bank. And if we don't, we borrow money, it costs us more money, it's spent, increase the budget again. Okay, I'm just trying to caution the board. You're down to, when you drop below the 5% board, you're down to a very dangerous level. And there's no guarantee the state of California is going to maintain the safety factor. There could be another, in fact, there was talk about recession, you remember, before the COVID-19, okay? And it can happen again. So those are things that we gotta, so we get, my thinking is that let's not think about, oh yeah, but we got 5.1%, we got 3%, maybe we can borrow, take the 2%, maybe convert it into money and give it away. Be very careful with that thinking.
Well, however, what we're looking at here is that we have, based on the budget information that we just received from Mr. Schulenberg, we're not going to get any better. Every year, we're going to go deeper and deeper into no money, if I'm getting it right. We're not getting any better. Our demands far outweigh what we have in our pocket. And it just does not add up. If we keep spending the way we're spending, we are not going to be able to maintain. So somehow we've got to either visit programs and ask ourselves, do we need all the programs, or we're going to visit our staffing ratio? We're going to have to visit all kinds of things in order to sustain what we have. Because if the governor doesn't give you everything that, we are just assuming that the governor will agree. It's a huge assumption. He's already put it out there that there'll be 10% cut. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're all going to get the full 10%. It just says there will be 10% cut
No,
across the board. So we're going to play around with
Yeah, we have
that.
no control. I agree with your concern, okay, but what Dennis has said is correct. If we continue to face this downward funding trend, the CSBA, all of us, school district will unite together and go for the governor. Can we convince the legislators to give us more money? We don't know. But we will fight for it, just like we did before.
That's very important that we do so.
Yeah,
Yeah, we will.
but we don't know today that he's going to increase it. Okay?
Okay.
So these are the dangers facing us, and that's why as a board, we meet and we look at the budget ourselves and say, what can we do to make sure it's safe?
So for June 11th, will you be able to have that information on how much we spent on the summer, on this, what do you call it, on the COVID-19? School's out, right? Our district is out. So you pretty much know how much you spent on the COVID-19.
I could have some information based on some expenditures we've made specifically related to distance learning and COVID-19, but I won't be able to compare it to any savings that we might have had due to reduced utility usage, perhaps, while the kids were all at home. I could have some partial information next week.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, there's bus
Let's see.
costs, we weren't paying,
Bus was
We're-
out there.
I know, and they were out there.
Bus was out trying to get, take things to the school.
We had some vans out. We will have some reduced fuel costs, but that we had other costs that were associated. And what Matt is trying to explain is he has to close the books before he can give a full comparison year to year of the period of time. So the closing of the books, even though school is out, doesn't happen until the end of June 30th for that period of time. So
Okay, let's move on.
Yes, yeah.
I do have all my questions answered. Thank you.
Where are we now? Here. Discussion action session is recommended the board of trustees discuss and take action on the following items. Number 1, approve the certificated and classified personnel actions as listed.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 2,
I'll make a
Sit.
motion, we accept the COVID-19 operations written report.
I'll second that.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye.
I make a motion that we approve the authorization to piggyback bids on other public entities.
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, public hearing, conduct a public hearing regarding the proposed budget of the Apple Valley Unified School District for the 2020-2021 school year. time opened?
8:17.
Okay. Okay, are there any questions or comments from the members of the board regarding proposed budget of the Apple Valley Unified School District for the 2020-2021 school year? Board questions or comments?
No?
Okay, board president says I open the public hearing regarding the proposed budget for the Apple Valley Unified School District for the 2020-2021 school year for public comment at,
8:18.
what time is it?
8:18.
8:18. Due to the streaming process, we will pause for 5 minutes to allow for public comment. Those wishing to address the board are invited to email their comment to avusdboard@avusd.org. Is there any
Okay,
public
We'll
comment?
count off 5 minutes. What happened to our clock?
5
That used to
minutes.
be on that wall. Could you
AVUSD_board@avusd.org. There was an underscore that was left out. So if anybody is trying to make public comment, they need to email it to avusd_board@avusd.org.
Okay, public comments?
We still have 5 minutes.
Oh,
We gotta
just
wait 5
waiting.
minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
Oh, 5 minutes. Okay, thank you.
About 4 minutes.
This whole budget thing is serious.
Huh?
Budget thing. It's
It's been a while.
You guys just get on board in 2008.
You put a timer up.
Thank you.
8:23.
Is it time?
No, it's not time yet.
It's going.
Have 3
It's,
more
oh, we
minutes.
have 3 minutes.
Is it?
Yes.
Do we have,
Here,
do we have public comment?
do we have a public comment?
We received no public comments.
Thank you. Board President, hearing no further public comment, I now close the public hearing regarding the proposed budget for the Apple Valley Unified School District for the 2020-2021 school year. Time closed,
8:24.
8:25.
Okay. fine.
Now, it is recommended that the Board of Trustees consider approving a number of agenda items as a consent list. Consent items are routine in nature and can be enacted in one motion without further discussion. This procedure conserves meeting time for a full discussion of significant issues.
I move that we approve 1 through 24 on
I
consent.
second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I already got my questions answered.
Okay.
Sound good.
Let's see. Let's see.
Public comment.
Oh, yes, public comments. Anybody with a public comment?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. And superintendent comments?
No, I just appreciate everybody being flexible with dates and times, and we probably will need a potential board meeting in July before we come back due to some of the things that we may be dealing with for COVID-19 and reopening and all of that good stuff. So we have no board member scheduled or board meeting scheduled in July, but we may need one. So we'll keep in touch regarding that.
Yeah, that's fine. We go and put it out. Well, and next meeting, we're going to start at 1 o'clock, right?
Next
Yes.
meeting, we will start at 1 o'clock.
Wilson, did you have comments?
No.
What? No,
No.
I don't.
Dennis, you
No.
don't? Okay, Rick,
Nope.
None,
Maria,
none.
and Donna, thank you, everybody, for having such a good meeting under the circumstances. Closed session.
There's no need for.
No
closed
There's no
session.
need
for
for
that.
social closed session.
Motion for adjournment.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
So move.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,